Assassin's Creed 1's stealth mechanics are very different from the ones we know today. Back then, we didn't have a crouch button or tools like smoke bombs and sleep darts. Still, it remains a good and unique stealth game that paved the way for the modern AC games. And so, I challenged myself to do ghost stealth throughout AC1. Here are the rules. 1. I cannot be detected. But since detection is different in AC1, I want to point out that this is the icon that I need to avoid. Other ones are okay, but if I see this one, I need to reload the game. The only exception to this rule is after the main assassinations. This is because the game forces me to be seen by the guards after assassinating the main targets. However, once I escape from the guards and become anonymous, I cannot be seen again. This means that if I get spotted again on my way to the bureau, it will count as detection and I need to reload. 2. I can only kill targets. I'll be trying to kill only the main targets, which means I'll try to avoid doing investigations that lead to killing guards or non-main targets. This also means I cannot save citizens except for some forced situations. Additional note, I'll be skipping the modern world bit since there is really no gameplay there. With all that, let's begin. Altair begins the game by breaking all the rules of the Assassin's Brotherhood and also of this run. First, he kills this old man who is obviously not a guard and a target. Then, he lets the enemy see him before attempting an assassination. This led to a failed attempt and I got thrown out of the room like a little bitch. Fast forward and we are now in Masyaf reporting to Al-Mulim about the failed mission. It also turned out that one of the assassins we were working with was alive and was able to complete the mission without us. But he also brought the Templars with him and so we had to fight. I want to point out that throughout this segment, the detection icon will flash red, so this doesn't count as detection, otherwise I won't be able to continue. For this next part where I had to go through Templars attacking the village, I simply ran away from them since they are not my target. I only needed to reach the entrance of the village to get to the next cutscene. Here, I had to perform a leap of faith, which I did without a problem. However, the others were not so lucky. I then unleashed a surprise attack to defeat the Templars standing in front of the fortress. Unfortunately, despite my victory over the enemies, Al-Mulim was still very angry about Altair breaking the Assassin's Creed, and so he stripped me of my ranks and abilities to teach me a lesson. So now I had to act like a newbie assassin and do some missions without a hidden blade or any other weapon. I had to eavesdrop to learn some information about a target, pickpocket a merchant for more info, and beat up a guy who turned out to be a traitor. Since I didn't have a weapon, I brought him to Al-Mulim who then decided to plant a sword on his shoulder. After this, I got my hidden blade and sword back. I also had a new mission which leads us to the first main target of this run. But before we go on, I want to note that it is possible to get detected when riding between missions. So I want to note here that in the areas in between cities, I made sure to either blend or avoid high profile movement so that guards won't detect me. Moving on, we arrive at Damascus where we encounter a forced combat situation. I tried to look for a way around but the game didn't even allow me to move unless I fought the guards, so I did. I surprise assassinated the first guy and quickly dealt with the others. Saving that citizen allowed me to blend in with some monks and get into the city without problem. Once I was inside, I synchronized with some viewpoints to find investigation missions. As mentioned before, I avoided investigations that made me kill non-targets. So I looked for pickpocket targets and those rooftop challenges where I had to find another assassin. With those done, I was ready to go to the bureau and plan out the assassination attempt. I went into the spot where the target would be and witnessed how he brutally manhandled someone. Now, because of how AC1 works, there is really no way to assassinate Tamir without raising any alarm, so I simply assassinated him right after the cutscene. I then mounted my escape by running to the rooftops and heading to a nearby roof garden. Once I was anonymous, I carefully made my way through the city without getting a second alarm. I did this by making sure to blend when I am nearby guards. I also tried to stay on the rooftop since there are no guards on the roof at this stage of the game. I managed to get back to the bureau unseen, reported back to Al-Mulim, and get the names of my next two targets. I first headed to Jerusalem. To get there, I had to ride through the road again. However, I found that the roads leading to the city are heavily guarded. For example, this path has two archer towers that I had to go through. I learned here that if archers see me, it would lead to detection. So I committed Sekiro to reload the game. I did a second attempt but it had the same result. So I searched for another path to take. But this path has a Templar menacingly watching the road, and the guy detected me once I got a few meters near him, so I looked for another path. In this one, I could ride without getting detected by the guards. However, there was an archer on the rock that spotted me, so I committed Sudoku and tried again. This time without the horse. This allowed me to walk right beneath the rock and avoid the archer's vision. Since the guards are also not hostile towards me, it was the perfect plan. After that, I had to go through another area with a lot of guards. Fortunately, they are also not hostile, so I only had to watch out for the archers in the tower. I managed to sneak from the archer by waiting patiently until he looked back, and then I went into the base of the tower. I then waited again for him to look the other way before I sprinted away from my hiding spot. The last challenge to get to Jerusalem was this area. There was an archer tower right beside the only entrance. Luckily, after looking around, I found this corner where I could climb through and get past the tower without getting seen. I carefully blended until I was away from the tower to make sure I got past without a problem. And with that, I arrived at Jerusalem. To get inside the city, I simply climbed over this conveniently placed cart and into the rafters. I synchronized at the nearest viewpoints and looked for investigations to do. For this mission, I did the pickpocket and flag retrieval investigations. After completing these tasks, I proceeded to my main target. I snuck into the area he was in through this ladder. The whole thing turned out to be a trap, and so I was in a forced detection situation. Since this is a ghost run, I ignored the guards circling me and proceeded to chase Talal. I managed to get him before he got off the roof. To escape, I simply ran up a nearby building and jumped into a haystack. Once the coast was clear, I got out of the haystack and blend walked. You see, if I don't blend, any guard who see me will become alerted and lead to detection. And so I had to blend for a couple of meters until I found a safe spot where I could climb and make my way through the roof. While making my way through the rooftops of Jerusalem, I made sure to be careful and be patient to avoid detection from guards. After a couple of minutes dodging rooftop guards, I managed to get into the bureau and finish the mission. For my next target, I also had to make my way through the same area where I headed to Jerusalem, so I just did the exact same tactics of hiding from the archers. And so I made it to Acre, parkoured my way into the city, and synchronized at the nearby viewpoint. The first investigation I did was eavesdropping, which was super easy. For the pickpocket investigation, I had to go through this hole in the roof since guards were blocking the entrance. But once I got in, pickpocketing was easy. With the investigations done, I snuck into the area where the target is. I needed to climb to the roof, dodge some guards, and make my way down the halls. Normally, entering this place is easy if I save the citizen outside, but because I'm going for targets only, I had to do this the hard way. After watching the cutscene, I made my way to a corner where the target Garnier will be. I chose this spot because it will give me an easy path for escape, so I simply waited for him to tend to the patient and dealt the killing blow. I then made my escape off the rafters and into a hole in the wall. The guards chased me for a while until I managed to hide using a bench. Once anonymous, I just blend walked to the bureau and finished the mission. With all targets down, I reported back to Al-Mulim who gave me back some tools and 3 new targets. Fortunately, I now have the ability to fast travel. This will save me a lot of time and also avoid potential detection on the roads. I first went to Damascus where I had to eliminate Abul. For the investigations, I did some eavesdropping, flag finding, and pickpocketing. Getting to the target was a bit difficult since the area around it is heavily patrolled. However, I managed to find a spot where I was able to enter without a problem. I was then able to stealthily shadow patrolling soldiers. I studied their patrol patterns, allowing me to find windows of opportunities like hiding in this haystack. I did the same to another group of soldiers and was able to get into the party where my target was. Abul made a long speech and eventually revealed that he had poisoned the food and wine. Everybody started panicking and screaming, which made for great distraction. During my first attempt, I got spotted climbing a structure, so I had to reload. This time, I managed to find a safer climbing spot which allowed me to remain undetected. I was able to climb onto the roof, make my way onto a beam above the target, and assassinated him. I made my escape by simply running until I eventually found a roof garden to hide in. Once I was anonymous, I carefully navigated the rooftops, making sure I avoided guards, and got back to the bureau to finish the mission. Next, I went to Jerusalem to eliminate Majd Addin. As usual, I did some pickpocketing and eavesdropping investigation. However, I was forced to do an interrogation since there were no other available investigations that wouldn't result in the death of a non-target. I chose to do an interrogation since I will only have to kill one person, unlike the assassination challenges. With all those done, I went on the hunt for my main target. I entered the area from the rooftops and initiated the cutscene. After the target's monologue, I waited for these guards to look away and climbed up to a nearby building. Before I got to the spot where I'll assassinate Majd, I had to get past this guard. While I was able to do this, I failed the assassination horribly. So I committed Santoro and tried again. When I reloaded to the last checkpoint, I realized that the guards on the roof was now gone, so it was safer to go to my assassination spot. Still, I made a few more failed attempts, but I was eventually able to assassinate Majd from the rooftop. For my escape, I quickly ran up to the rooftops and hid in a nearby roof garden. Once I lost the guards, I slowly navigated the rooftops to make sure that I won't start a second alarm. After a few minutes of sneaking, I got to the bureau and the mission was done. third target for this memory block, William of Montferrat, is in Acre. Doing some of the investigations in this mission required a bit more work. For instance, I had to sneak into this building so I could initiate a pickpocket investigation. Climbing viewpoints has also become harder since there are more guards in the city. I even ended up getting spotted trying to climb a church, so I had to commit suicune to reload. Other investigations I did are catch flags and another interrogation one where I had to kill the target. After that, I headed to the main target. When the cutscene ended, I simply made my way to the left side of the wall and climbed up. I wiggled my way to this spot so I could get in without anyone seeing me. I also had to wait for the perfect moment to get past these guards. With luck, I was able to climb this wall, jump through here, and safely climb this tower. If you are an OG AC fan, you know what I am about to do. And I am so happy I could do this in a ghost run. I leapt from the tower, grabbed some ledges, and performed an eagle strike. I know it wasn't perfect, but it will do. I escaped the castle by jumping into this haystack from the castle walls. I patiently waited for the right moment to go out of the haystack since there are Templars roaming nearby. I then had to walk for more than a couple of minutes since I couldn't find a safe spot to climb up without any guards seeing me. After about 6 minutes of blind walking, I found this ladder and took a risk. Fortunately, there were no nearby guards and I was able to get back to the bureau to finish the task. With all 3 targets down, I went back to Al-Molim who gave me 2 more names to eliminate. I first went to Damascus to eliminate Jubair al-Hakim, but before that, I did some rooftop race, pickpocketing, and eavesdropping to get some intel. Getting to the target the first time was easy. I just had to parkour through the roof and into a balcony of sorts. Here, I watched a cutscene before the target decided to head to a new spot. I had to check a few spots to find a target and did so without any guard seeing me. Eventually, I was able to find him. Dealing a stealth kill was also easy since I just needed to wait for him to turn around. Escape was a bit tricky for this mission since there were a lot of guards on the rooftops. Wherever I went, there were a couple of guards chasing me or patrolling an area. Luckily, I managed to find a window of opportunity and hide in this roof garden. As you can see, there was an army chasing after me. When the coast was clear, I left the spot and stealthily made my way back to the bureau to conclude the mission. Next, I went back to Acre to eliminate Sibrand. As usual, I did some rooftop races, eavesdropping, and pickpocketing. When I got to my target, I witnessed him murdering a monk who he thought was an assassin. This guy was paranoid and so he decided to live on a boat, lol. So after the cutscene, I simply parkoured my way through the boats and into his ship. Though I needed to be careful and make sure this archer didn't see me. Unfortunately, I got spotted before I could get to the target and had to reload. This time with a slightly different timing, I was able to assassinate the target before anyone saw me. I also noticed something different with this mission. After killing Sibrand, I was not exposed or detected. This was the only mission that allowed this, so I had to find a way to escape the port without anyone seeing me. So when the detection icon flashed yellow, I committed Sekiro. It took a couple of tries but I was able to leave the ship unseen and parkoured my way back to where I started since the other entrances were blocked by guards. However, I was being careful in the exit since there were drunks that could push me which would take me out of blend and alarm the guards. Once the drunks were far away, I was able to walk out and made my way to the bureau by blend walking and dodging guards. Now I have eliminated 8 Templars which meant there was only 1 left. So Al-Molim gave me the go signal to target the big boss, Robert the Sap. Robert is in Jerusalem, so that is where I went. The first investigation I did was a rooftop race. However, since I've killed a lot of important people already, guards have become more suspicious of me. This led to me being detected easily in some areas, so I reloaded and took a more subtle approach to finish the investigation. I also had a problem with the pickpocket investigation since I had to sneak into another building but guards were patrolling the area. But I simply reloaded and waited for the perfect time to climb and I was able to finish the investigation. The last investigation I did was actually easy. I just had to sneak into this area and then eavesdrop on some men. I then attended a funeral where my target was supposed to be. Unfortunately, the guards knew I was an assassin and attacked me before I could assassinate my target. Since there were a lot of guards, I had trouble focusing on my target. This led me to die a couple of times. To make things easier, I decided to equip the heated blade since all its counterattacks are one-hit kills. So I only needed to dodge attacks from non-targets. When my target attacked me, I countered with a killing blow. But it turned out the target I was about to kill was not my target. Fortunately, Altair knew that I was doing a ghost run and so we didn't kill this non-target. I then made my escape by losing the guards using this bench. I then made my way to the rooftops and back to the bureau undetected. Now I had to go to Arsuf to find Robert and snitch to the king. So I went out of the city and headed to Arsuf. However, I was unable to sneak through this area since the tower has more archers than before. Sneaking, even without a horse, was an automatic detection, so I reloaded the game by exiting the Animus, thinking it would send me back to Jerusalem where I could fast travel to Damascus, which was closer to where I needed to be. But it sent me to the northern part of the map. Traveling the roads from there undetected was easy until I got to this point. There were 3 archers above and they could see me even when I blind walked. However, I noticed that the detection icon only went yellow instead of red. So technically I wasn't exposed or detected, they are just very suspicious. So I just went on ahead and made sure to not get exposed. Same as before, I also had to make my way through this checkpoint, sneak past these archers by waiting underneath the tower, and eventually I made it to Arsuf. Now, the ghost run has technically ended because all encounters from this point forward are forced combat. I had to take out some archers, soldiers, a bunch more soldiers, and some Templars before I got to Robert and the king. I then had to fight more Templars, including Robert, to prove to the king that I was telling the truth. The fight with Robert was close, but I managed to counterattack at the last moment. With his last breath, Robert told me about Al-Mulim's secret and that he had betrayed the assassins. So after this encounter, I am now back in Masyaf, where I had to fight brainwashed assassins. I managed to beat them with the help of Malik and friends. I then faced Al-Mulim and inevitably defeated him. And with that, we retrieve the apple and conclude this ghost run. It was a fun run, however, I would be lying if I say I like the repetitive investigations before eliminating the main targets. Still, experiencing AC1's blend and other stealth mechanics were a good callback to the OG days of stealth and Assassin's Creed.